What's up, everybody? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow Chart podcast with your boys, Matt Wolf and Joe Fear.
I'm curious on the valuation part, because it's a huge piece of it. And so how do you approach that? Because you said you had a big ask. And
we did, yeah. And it's valuation, particularly in a Shark Tank level, in any private company, in any startup, is totally, finger in the wind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of metrics can you possibly use to value this other than the generalities? Now, that, Mr. Wonderful is going to use any kind of piece of data he has against you to kind of rip it down, whatever you can do. So we had sales and in meaningful and real sales and a strong run rate and an industry that's changing, all these different things. We did a lot of research. We spoke to professional money, meaning, private equity guys and some of our investors. We canvassed everywhere we could to try and get an eye line on our growth rate and if this were a normal meeting with like either an investment bank or a sophisticated investor, what would that conversation be and how would we peg into it? And that's what we tried to follow. Now, even with that, we knew it was going to be high because the Shark Tank valuation is not a real world valuation.
Right.
And, there's always going to be a significant discount. They are always looking for much more of a company because they're sharks that you might normally want to get. So where we said, hey, we're going to come out with this $20 million valuation that we knew they were going to scoff at. And the ask then for how much money becomes the key. Because that's another trigger level of then, producers calling you and saying, we think your valuation should be here and there because they want good TV.
Sure.
So there's a marrying of that even before you get into the tank. And then what we did is we created basically a matrix because, I'm not necessarily great at doing math on my feet. So I wanted to create a matrix that said, had the levers up and down and back and forth. So I kind of knew where we could go on a low, where we'd love to go on a high, but also what the variations would be. And even to the degree of doing the math to say, what would a royalty deal look like? How could that work? And how could we create the buyouts? And what you don't see, and I didn't know until 2-3 days before we went on, in terms of talking with one of the producers about the valuation, is you can't get creative. You can talk about warrants. You can talk about options. You can talk about, preferred stock and this and that. That'll never make it on the air. But it is, those guys are all sophisticated investors. So you can have those inducements in play. So we try to package all that into our conversation with them to be prepared for whatever may come. Now, when you get there, of course, I think even the show, they're like, oh, what a crazy valuation, because that makes good TV.
Sure.
And then they just immediately start to try and demolish it. Now, I think there's a great reason for a shark to get a great deal on a product depending upon where you are and what your goals are for your product. Like if you're a one-off product, great, do a deal with Lori, give her half the deal, whatever it takes, because, it's going to be a one and done if it's a flash in the pan. For other companies like ours, we weren't interested in getting a deal like that. We wanted to get a fair deal. And what I would have loved was a fair deal that would have probably been some sort of debt deal, because there's no way those guys want to get out of bed in the morning for more than 5%.
Right.
So in the middle of that then is this whole kind of, what I call the Shark Tank valuation strategy, which really comes from Mr. Wonderful, which is, now, wait a second, how much money are you making? Are you profitable? And, where a lot of companies are going to say maybe or yes, fortunately we were a little bit, but even you say, yeah, let's say we made 10% on our money last year and you did $1 million. So, oh, great, you made $100,000. Mr. Wonderful will say, well, how am I going to make my money back if I, and so what, the conversation I had with them, which gets cut out because, people don't want to hear it. It's like, well, Mr. Wonderful, then you should go invest in a bond, because what you're talking about is basically, making money off our money while we're trying to grow a company, not joining us as a partner and investor to put your money in and see the win over the long term, to ultimately turn that $100,000 into, $500,000, $600,000. So they use that kind of Shark Tank methodology to diminish valuations, I think, very unfairly. Maybe less sophisticated people kind of go down that path. But like for us, we had the benefit of like bringing Justin Bieber into play. For people who don't have Dennis's office where celebrities are coming in and out all day, then yeah, absolutely. Give Mark Cuban a ton of your company or, enough of it where you're going to be able to get that phone call. You're going to be able to get that leg up. You're going to be able to get Lori Greiner to help you get that shelf space in Bed Bath & Beyond. that's huge, and in many cases invaluable. So you just have to base it on where you are in your company and what your goals are in terms of the Shark Tank haircut. Because again, they do want a lot more. It also depends on how much money you think you need to raise over the long term, because there will be future dilution. If you're giving them 40% of the company, that all things you have to take into consideration.
I think there was something that you wrote about. I think some advice by one of the sharks. I think it was Lori, about because you positioned it as more of a product, correct, and not as a brand. Speaking of that a little bit, because I found that fascinating, just the mindset shift.
Well, it's interesting because I kind of think, so if you watch the segment, her out was, I think you're just a product, which on the face of it, and I wish I was smart enough in the moment to be like, wait, that's what you do. Like you're at QVC and that's what you do. And her point was like, I don't see this as anything more than kind of a one and done, I guess, or like this is just something that's going to come and go, and doesn't have legs to it, and doesn't have what we would, I could sit here and talk for hours about the brand we're creating and the movement, the category we're creating around movement in sitting and building a tribe and all this other stuff, and the future products we're going to have. It was easy for her to kind of dismiss as, oh, it's just a chair, which I think is a cop out for her to be like, yeah, I can't afford the deal, or I don't know how to affect this deal, or there's not enough, potential ownership in it for me to be worthwhile.
Sure.
If I were really on the ball, I would have said to her, hey, Lori, if Dyson came in here, going back to the Dyson example, as a vacuum, it's just a vacuum. It's got some new cool technology. You would have passed on it because it's just a product. And that's where we look at our companies, like it's a brand. That's where we're going to be a Dyson of chairs, and that's the way we kind of look at it. Yeah. So I think it's an interesting thing to talk about, and for me, it's an important reminder in all sales presentations, be it internal, like to your board when you're talking about your financials, be it external to potential investors or to a buyer on the other side of the table at Staples or something. What they are seeing in your pitch, in your presentation, they're seeing a photograph. They're seeing what you can describe right now. And again, back to my kind of movie days, what I'm seeing and what I'm trying to say is the movie that I can see in my head.
Yeah.
And they're two very different things.
It's more of a vision in your head. It seems like there's a bigger story, connecting all the dots.
Yeah. And this is actually, I learned this from a guy named John McCarville. He was the CEO of Crocs, at the time, the CEO of Crocs. And I was working with him on one of our last deals, and we were getting ready for a board meeting. He's like, he told me that lesson. I'm like, oh my God, that makes total sense, because you guys aren't seeing all the other stuff I have in my mind that I'm not necessarily communicating, or I think I'm communicating. And that's what people get out of a pitch. They get the picture. They don't get the whole movie. And it's an important thing to remember. And that, I think it's a perfect analogy from that product conversation to the brand conversation.